welcome to this episode of What's Happening Waupaca. I am Joni Kern. Today we get to talk with Alan Keeland, who is one of the City of Waupaca Council members. I'll get it out here sooner or later. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we are going to talk today about the deer problem in the city of Waupaca. And out where I live in the country, there's always deer on the roads. Sure. I don't think of it as being a city problem. So how bad is it really in Waupaca?
Well, my wife and I live on South Main Street, and we regularly have a herd of 6 or 7 deer that come down between my property and the adjacent property, cut through my backyard, and eat all the vegetation in the process.
And all the flowers. In the
flowers,
summertime.
yes. The only thing they haven't eaten yet is the boxwood. We planted some of those. Apparently, those are deer resistant. But anyway, last fall, several citizens approached the city council at a public during the public input part of the meeting. And they were concerned and expressed their concerns about the vandalism that was being done by the deer. And as a result of that, Mayor Smith asked to put together a committee to study this issue to see if it really is a problem. And the council approved that. And so on November 14th, we held our first meeting. There are 9 of us on the committee, including 3 alderpersons, myself as one of them. And we began looking at overall, is there a problem? Are there too many deer within the city? What we found is that the number of car-deer collisions, for example, has been increasing every year for the last 5 years.
So you looked at it as how many collisions there were in 2016?
Yes, and 15 and 14,
sure.
Going back to 2011.
So I'm curious, how many deer car collisions were there in the city of Waupaca?
Well, the last full year of data we have is from 2015. Mm-hmm. There were 65 car deer collisions that year.
That seems like a lot.
Many of them are on Highway 10, as you would expect, because of the higher speed limit and slower reaction time. But they occur right downtown on Washington Street, for example, Main Street, Fulton. There have been quite a few of them. So it's been increasing every year. That's one issue, just the cost of that problem. We also looked at disease issues. There are at least 5 tick-borne illnesses spread by the deer tick. And the most common one is Lyme disease, but we did look at the incidence of that. And that has been increasing every year also. So
how do people get Lyme disease from a deer tick?
Well, the deer tick itself has it.
Right, but they have to be bit.
Yes.
So the deer carry the ticks, who then transfer to humans, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Now, the deer is not. Deer are not the only hosts for the tick.
Right.
But I'd say it's probably the predominant animal that carries the tick. So we looked at that. That was an issue also. And as I said, we found out that the incidence of Lyme disease is increasing. Those 5 diseases, by the way, are all endemic to Wisconsin. So any one of those diseases could occur. So once we found those kinds of numbers, we decided to create a survey for city's residents. And this is both online and mailed. And we received a very good response, about 400 responses to the questions that we had asked.
Sure.
First of all, did they know there was a deer problem, or were they aware of it? Are you aware that the city is doing anything to investigate this, and so on? And would you be in favor of or opposed to an organized hunt of some kind to reduce the population? So
what was the winning vote for taking care of them? Do more people think that they do need to be taken care of?
Yes.
Or
yes, by far. The majority of people thought that there's definitely a deer problem in the city, that we should be doing something to take care of it.
Do you have any idea and I would imagine this is hard to track, but do you have any idea how many deer are living in the city of Waupaca in the very near area?
We can extrapolate from the data that the county has on it. Waupaca has probably the highest deer population of all the counties in the state, or certainly one of the highest, if not the highest. And because of that, then the city itself has a population probably around 400, as many as 400 deer within the city limits.
Just holy mackerel. See, I would have never thought that it was that high.
Well, as I said, there are 6 or 7 deer regularly on my property, and if you multiply that by the number of, you know.
Well, and you know, I'm aware because there are some evergreens that deer like, and they eat my tulips every spring, and they, you know, especially in harsh winters, the closer they can get to the house, the more vegetation they're going to find to eat. But that's something that has never bothered me. But they do, I mean, they will wreak havoc on a garden, but that really doesn't sound like the primary reason for trying to control the population in Waupaca.
It is probably the most obvious reason. I mean, it's visible, definitely visible by all of the residents. And I've likened this to if we had a band of teenagers doing that kind of destruction, I think we'd take care of it immediately. Obviously, it's not a band of teenagers doing this, but
and deer are pretty to look at.
they are.
You know, that makes
good looking animal.
That makes it a little bit tougher.
And
you know,
unfortunately, we have people who are feeding the deer within the city, intentionally feeding them.
Yeah.
That is prohibited not only by city ordinance but also by state law. So one of our recommendations to council is going to be an education program to make sure these people know, and then also stricter enforcement of the ordinance.
and by the way, feeding deer often is one of the worst things you can do for them anyway.
That's right. That's right.
So what did the committee decide would be the best way to take care of the problem?
We are going to make 6 recommendations to City Council. One of them, as I talked about, is the education program, enforcement of the existing laws. We did review the laws, by the way, that are in place, and we see there's no reason to increase or decrease any of those. The state does allow bow hunting within city limits already. And in the case of Waupaca, there's a permit required from the police department. It's a 2-year permit for $10, and you are allowed to hunt within city limits if you have permission of neighbors on both sides of you, and you have to shoot downwards.
That would be a really important consideration.
One of the things that we talked about too is the possibility of a gun hunt in the city, but we unanimously decided that would not be a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, if I would look at one of the 2 hunts, as a citizen of Waupaca, I would feel safer. Not entirely safe, but I would feel safer with a bow hunt.
Right.
Now, is this going to happen during deer season, or are you talking about doing it at
Yes
other
and no.
times?
We're working with the DNR on this also. We're recommending that there be an organized bow hunt within the city limits, but restricted to parcels of 10 acres or more, with property owner permission, of course.
Right.
And I was surprised at how many parcels there are that are greater than 10 acres within the city limits.
I wouldn't have ever guessed there would be any.
But there are many, many of them. So that's one of our primary recommendations, an organized bow hunt, but it would be subject to proficiency of the archers, and they'd have to qualify in order to be part of it.
Excellent idea.
Things like that. And the meat would, by and large, be donated to food pantries or places like that.
Excellent idea.
So, in a nutshell, I guess that's really what our recommendations have been. We did, as I said, look at the health problem, but not a very thorough investigation. So we would recommend also that be part of the study in the future.
Sure.
Now, we'll be making these recommendations to council on February 22nd. That's Wednesday of next week. And we'll see where council wants to go with that.
Well, I can see both sides of the issue because I like seeing deer in my yard and I like seeing deer in the woods, but I also have hunters on my land because it truly is important ecologically to cull the herd is, essentially what nature does.
That's right.
But when we interfere with nature, that it doesn't work as well.
And I agree that the deer are pretty animals. I've had fawns born in back my property for 3 years in a row now, twins in 2 cases. So it's always interesting to see that process going on.
Oh, absolutely. Nature is beautiful, but I don't worry so much personally about the foliage being eaten, but when it comes to Lyme disease, which is for the rest of your life, pretty much deal with it. And car accidents,
yes.
That gets to be a little bit too much. Is there any way they could be moved, where they could be brought to outlying areas? Would deer do that, or would they come right back?
Some communities have tried that approach in the past. By and large, it's not very successful. They find their way back. They like the habitat. The city has a very good habitat for deer.
It does.
And that's unfortunate, I guess, in one respect. But
Sure.
yeah, there are many uninhabited areas within the city. Good food to eat there.
Well, there's a lot of parks.
Yes.
So,
parks too.
and there's a lot of water, so it's a very viable habitat for them to live in and
Very much.
eat and take care of themselves.
But we do feel that the deer herd has just grown out of control, and we need to do something about it.
Well, I think 400 deer in the city is a lot. I would have never guessed. And my guess is that most of the people who are watching this wouldn't guess that it was that high a number. So, I agree with you that it's something that needs to be taken a look at. And it's nice to talk with you, Alan, because it's nice to hear from older people that they are truly trying to take care of what's happening to the citizens of Waupaca and the people here. So thank you very much for coming on.
Absolutely.
We will look forward to hearing how this actually works and what is decided, and whether this program actually is able to cut the population. Because other cities around here, I'll bet, would use the same approach.
Yeah, in fact, we had advice from a metro group around the Wisconsin Rapids area who have organized a bow hunt similar to what we're proposing.
Cool. Thank you, Alan, for your
Yes.
time today. I'll look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of What's Happening in Waupaca. We'll see you next time.